DJ PK joined now by Jason Kreis from Real Salt Lake, the president of soccer operations. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, DJ. How are you?
Good. I have a vision of you in the off season in some kind of Halloween costume. You're standing over some massive pot and kettle. You're shaking in the ingredients. A striker here, a defender there, a new formation there, and the thing's bubbling and smoking. And then it's time to unveil the concoction, and it's well, whoever's healthy and can stand up will start the 11 of you. That was quite the debut, and not what I don't know what you envisioned exactly in November, December, and January, but it wasn't that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It wasn't that for sure. It was an interesting game to go into. It was a game that we kind of looked at and said, "There's no failure here." For us, because we were debuting a lot of new players. We were showcasing a lot of guys that have come up through our academy, and at the end of the day, the performance was quite good. So we were pleased with it. Obviously, the loss is not something that we want, and it's a loss in the standings, but it's a win for us in so many other ways.
I think it was 9 guys who were out, and it was split pretty evenly between injuries and guys who have visa issues, which obviously you have no control over governments issuing visas and that. How many of those guys are you getting back for the home opener with Seattle tomorrow night, and how shorthanded are you going to be for game number 2?
It's difficult to say. I know that there'd be one that was not available last weekend due to immigration issues that should be available this weekend, and Morgan Giavogi. But apart from him, I don't think that there's – there's a second one in Juan Sanabria. So 2 players that are now available because they've got their work visa situation sorted out. But we also took an injury in that game in DeAndre Yedlin. So we gained 2, but we also lose 1.
Yeah, we saw him go down late, and we wondered how serious that was. So, all right, well, there's the update on him. For people who haven't seen Giavogi, what did you see in him? How do you expect to deploy him? What do you expect to see out of him? What should fans expect?
There's one thing that I think is pretty clear, and we all feel very strongly about, is that Morgan is a very good soccer player. He has a great soccer mind. He's got a fantastic technical ability to manipulate the ball. Physically, he's also gifted. He's got really good size, really good speed. He's an agile player. So we believe that he's a player that will come in and help us create more goal-scoring chances and score some goals on his own. So it's a particular area of the field that we knew we needed to improve in the offseason is trying to get more goal-scoring chances and score more goals, and we think Morgan will contribute to that.
How do you visualize him, if not this weekend, in the long run? How do you visualize him combining with Victor Olatunji?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're really looking. It's not that we're saying that Morgan's going to come in and be the savior for us, but we believe that the addition of Morgan along with Victor, Diego Luna, Sanabria on the left, or Alex Katranis on the left, and on the right, somebody like Gozo or Mark Zook. It's the combination of those 5 players that we believe is going to lead us to more goal-scoring chances and ultimately more goals scored.
Sanabria, what did you see? Same question with him as with Giavogi here. What do you see? What do you like? What are fans going to notice right away when they watch him play?
There's 2 things. One is just an engine. He's a guy, that can run all day long. And that's something that we need out of both of our wide positions. But ultimately, I think that he and the team, we're looking for the team and for individuals to benefit from this new system that we're implementing this year, whereby we're attacking in the same shape as we're defending. So we're not asking for some sort of unbelievable physical output from the person that plays on the left. We believe that will lead to that player being more effective in the attack. We also think that it's going to get us more numbers into the final attacking phase. So Sanabria is the exact right fit for us with his technical ability and his ability to get up and down the field.
With this change, is the bottom line fewer transition goals, fewer transition opportunities? Is that the number one thing that you get out of changing it so that you're attacking and defending in the same formation?
Yeah, I think we suffered a little bit by last year with defensive transition. So when we lost the ball, we were basically down a left fullback who was extremely high up the field. This year, with just a little bit more of a balanced shape and bringing those 3 central defenders into being actual central defenders, we think that we should be able to cut that down. Although I do think that in either shape, leaving 3 central defenders all the time, it can still be a bit of our weakness. So it's something that we have to continue to focus on improving.
I'm really intrigued by what you've done with the defensive midfield because you've brought in some guys and it seems like it's super deep, but it's not clear to me who the best players are, and I've been told multiple times it's not always who the best players are. It's also how the best players combine and feed off each other, especially in those two positions. Do you have any idea how that's going to be sorted out, or is that very much to be determined based on how guys play once everybody's healthy?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you kind of correct in both cases. So for case number one, we felt like that was a position that we had real depth and real strength and was probably a little bit overloaded, and that's why we were able to trade a Brian Ojeda away to Orlando City and get back some fantastic resources there. And also, I think that we looked at that position and said we have too many players that are similar. The qualities of Emeka Nelly are too similar to the qualities of Brian Ojeda, so we need something different out of that position. And that's why it led us to the decision to sign Stein Spearing. Spearing is a little bit different than what we have because he's a ball-playing six. He's a little bit more in the mold of a Busquets. So he, ready to go. We think that he can bring us something different out of that position. The other players that are there are what I would call more typical eights or box-to-box central midfield players, and we've got quite a few good ones. So it is definitely an area of strength, and I think strength has gone to more strength because a player like Luka Moisa, who wasn't really on our radar, we didn't really think that he would be ready this year, steps up last week, steps up through the preseason, and shows that he's ready to make a mark on this team as well.
You made a lot of moves this offseason, and I think it addressed something that has bothered the fan base, and me for that matter, I guess, has bothered a lot of people for a long time. There have been too many years since you left after 2013, Jason, and you were gone. So, I mean, you probably kept an eye on it from a distance, but you weren't in a place where you could really focus on it. You had other jobs. Since 2013, there was just this feeling that too often RSL came into the season with one of the 3 or 4 worst rosters in the league. And it was up to the players to really grow and improve. It was up to the coaches to scheme and to push and to squeeze every drop out of them and somehow get into the playoffs and finish 7th and then hope they could pull a bunch of upsets. And, I mean, it actually ended up in a conference final one year. I mean, it could happen. It's not like they were terrible. They often outperformed the preseason expectations. But I think there were a lot of people thinking, RSL can never spend what an LA or Seattle is going to spend. But if they could go in projected to have the 6th best roster, it'd be fun to watch them try to grow and squeeze, and the coaches squeeze every drop out of them and see if they can get to 3rd to 2nd or 1st. And again, they have. They were a 3 seed one year. In another year, they were in a conference final. Sometimes they made the magic happen, but largely it was a massive leap of faith. It feels like that gap's been closed this year. Do you feel like you've got higher expectations than maybe you've had for some previous rosters?
Yeah, I think we do. I think that it was very, we've had many, many discussions with this new ownership group, with Steve Starks in particular, about sort of what we have done in the past and particularly what we have done over the past couple of years. And the roster spend was at the bottom of the league. And so on some level, you have to kind of at some point say, what do we expect here? And also I think but that's a nod and a positive nod towards what Real Salt Lake has been able to do really since the existence of the club, DJ. I mean, we have as a club, and I'll say we because I was there at the beginning and I'm back here now, the club has continued to punch above its weight. I mean, it's really quite fantastic. But that also leads you to a situation sometimes where you can become a little bit too comfortable. And so it can be like, well, we don't need to put any money into this because we just continue to punch above our weight and the guys will figure it out. But I think at some point as we move forward in this league and as people continue to spend more and more money, we have to have a different idea and we have to be able to say, okay, we have to, from a base point, we have to compete with the rest here. We have to spend more money on the roster. And then maybe if we do that, we can put together with all the great work that's happening with the coaching staff and leadership and put those things together. And maybe we're having a different conversation and competing for a championship again.
Yeah. I guess the boxing analogy, you don't want to watch a bantamweight try to punch above his weight against a heavyweight. At least give me a middleweight, a fighting chance.
Yeah, I think that's well said, DJ. Well done.
Do you have any explanation for why the Sounders haven't won here since like the 2012 playoffs? Because they are a heavyweight. They've had a great run. If they were college, we'd say it's a great program. You're a Duke guy. You know about great programs in college basketball. They're a great program. Any explanation for the results here in Utah?
Well, first, there's absolutely zero doubt that they are a great program. I mean, they are perennial contenders. They are winning things basically on a yearly or bi-yearly basis. So last year winning the Leagues Cup is case in point. And they're also a team that last week I think showed a really strong performance. So this is a massive challenge for us. I don't really know or understand why this building seems to be difficult for them. I think some of it's probably a little bit mental. Some of it also has to do with the altitude. And look, I mean, the truth of the matter is that we believe that this our home stadium should be more of a fortress than it has been. Certainly last year was a disappointment for our home record, especially in the first half of the season. And I'm hoping that the focus and the attention is displayed clearly to the players that has to improve this year.
So the team will be shorthanded this weekend to a large degree. You've already covered that. You couple guys back, another guy out. There's a lot of guys listed with knee injuries. And, I mean, knee injuries in sports, that can be a week, that can be a month, that can be a year. You probably can't give me a definitive answer, but can you give the fans any kind of answer like how long these guys are out for? Ballpark?
Yeah. So interesting. A really strange thing happened last week. In one training session, we lost 4 players. It was almost like it had to be a Friday the 13th situation, although it was a Wednesday. In that session, we lost both Lucas Engel and Diego Luna to knee tweaks, basically MCL sprains. And I think the outlook on Lucas is quite positive. I think he will be available tomorrow. So he's already back. And then Diego, I think, is just a week or 2 weeks behind that. So we expect both those situations to clear up here in the short term. Emeka Anelli's situation is a little bit more long-term, and it's something that we're really looking into to figure out how we can make the situation better and get him on a pathway forward. So, that one is still a little bit unclear.
All right. It's a World Cup year. Does it feel different? Or are you so into the season and the roster and dealing with the injuries and all the guys who still need visas? Does that not even on your radar?
Not even on our radar. That's it's obvious. We're all excited about it. We all believe that a World Cup is going to be a tide that lifts all boats, and so we're excited about that. But us that are in the business, we just focus on what's going on here, especially now that we're starting our games. We've got a week by week focus.
Well, Jason, we'll leave it right there. This week, it's the Seattle Sounders. It's the home opener, 5:30 for the first kick, pregame at 4:30 on the Zone. Jason, thanks for joining us, and good luck with all the visas and all the injuries.
Thanks very much for having us. We will get there. Give us a couple of weeks, and we're going to be at full strength. And I think when we're at full strength, you're going to see one of the strongest RSL teams in the history of RSL.
Jason Kreis, Real Salt Lake president of soccer operations, finishing the interview with a little clip and save bite right there. Yeah, clip it and save it. They spend money. Yeah. If you're at the bottom of the league in the salary spend, how do you expect to do any better than the middle of the league? And I did get asked once, there was a debate in the press box between a couple people like, well, if they spent all the money, do you think Pablo would do well? And I look like, yeah. One guy's like, why? And I'm like, well, because he already did it. They did have a year they spent a lot of money under the previous ownership, under Blitzer. They went out. They had the biggest offseason ever, right? They brought in this 20-year-old from Colombia. They brought in this MLS veteran who'd been great in L.A. Yeah, and then Chicho came in and scored a bazillion goals in half a season before everything went sideways and then upside down. And they brought the kid along, and then they sold him for millions to a club in France that he's not even at anymore. And they had the most goals they'd ever scored and the most points they'd ever earned. So, yeah, I think they can do it if they spend the money, and it looks like that's the direction the Millers are going in. And I think that it needs to be the phrase, the direction they are going in. I don't think that all the chips went to the middle of the table. I think the chips that made sense went to the middle of the table, but if they do something big this summer, if they do something big in the next offseason, it's not like they went all in here and now they're going to be super quiet in the next 2 windows. I'd be surprised if it played out that way. If for no other reason than the cost of poker is going up. The only thing that's accelerating at the same rate as NIL is what MLS clubs are investing. They are pushing chips into the middle of the table and spending money. All right, when we come back, everything you missed in this show, Riley Gentleman is here talking football. David Locke on the Jazz moves in the offseason. We'll get to all of that next. Hockey tonight. Big game in the playoff race. Stay with us.
This is JJ and Alex.
I got this.
Travis Jost, NHL writer for TSN.
The Mammoth have a goal differential that not only indicates contender, but a team that can actually win a playoff series. And at even strength, their top 9 is as competitive as most teams you'll find in the league. The one thing the NHL standings can do is lie to you, because the third point given out in overtime, it creates a false parity in some respects. Goal differential is a much better indicator than win-loss record or shootout records or overtime records. The Sabres and the Mammoth look much more like top 10 teams than they do fringe wildcard contenders, and those would be the 2 teams I'd pin as sleepers here.
The Mammoth are 5th in the NHL in goal differential. 3 of the top 5 are in their division.
Again, there's a little bit of an argument of like, oh yeah, it's easy to beat up on Chicago, and it's like, yep, but for every game they have to play Chicago, they've got to play Colorado, and that stuff washes out over an 82-game season.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. Time to catch up on what we've been talking about during this show. Your Utah Jazz. Now, many of you aren't watching Jazz games. I get that. But I am paid to watch Jazz games. I have to watch Jazz games. And I get why it's hard to watch Jazz games. The winning and losing is not the thing. And even if they start playing well and have a decent quarter or whatever, at some point a rotation's going to come. And I gotta give it up to Will Hardy. He's doing it in very creative ways. He'll put different lineups out there. Well, that lineup can't win. It's too young and inexperienced. That lineup can't win. He's got some good players on the floor, but there's too many two-way/G League type guys out there also. Oh, that lineup's pretty good, but it's not nearly tall enough for who they're playing against. Yeah, he knows. This is the job. I like the creativity. Now, last night it was about playing guys who barely play. And it's hard to put guys in with the game, quote unquote, on the line and say, hey, Elijah Harkless, you've barely played. Hey, Oscar Sweeby, you've barely played. Hey, Blake Hinson, you've barely played. But guess who was out there in the second half? Hey, that's a 15-point game. Put the wrong guys out there, that thing could be tied up. Not going to have any of that. So they play these other guys, and it's worth it because as PK said, the only point in these last 25 games is to A, lose and hold on to the draft pick, and then B, have you got something, one of these guys? Now, you just heard high praise for Conchar. Well, when the trade was made, we did not refer to it as the Conchar trade. Now, had they scouted him? Yep. Since college? Of course. In the pros? Absolutely. Did they know they wanted him in the deal? And they need certain guys to make the money work. But this is a terrible defensive team. Even when they were playing everybody early in the season, this is a bad defensive team. They've been ranking 28, 29, 30 in the league for so long, I've stopped looking it up. I mean, I think it's pretty solidly 30 this year. I'm talking about in previous seasons. This has been terrible. And as Tim LeCombe once said hilariously when we were watching a game, he goes, well, you know how does it work? When they make the meeting optional, who shows up? When winning is optional or discouraged, really? Are you going to give that extra 10 or 20%? Well, John Conchar does, because they're not going to keep John Conchar because he's 7 feet tall, because he's not. And they're not going to keep him because he's 6'9" and athletic and the 5th pick in the draft and looks like he can handle the ball and score it effortlessly, because that's Ace Bailey. That's not John Conchar's thing. Why are they going to keep John Conchar? For what they just talked about, the fact that he is defensively always getting deflection. It's only 24 seconds to shoot. And honestly, most teams spend at least 5 or 6 seconds getting the ball up court most of the time. I mean, yeah, you're in transition some. So really, can you defend for 18 or 20 seconds? If you deflect a ball and steal it, you're running the other way. If you deflect the ball and knock it out of bounds, you make them reset. If you just bat it to half court, it's still wasted 3 or 4 valuable seconds, and now the ball's in midcourt and they got nothing going. Give yourself, it's all about the odds. It's a make-or-miss league. Shots go in, they don't go in. That's always true. You're just looking for a way 2 or 3 times a quarter to get a stop somebody else can't get. Because now you're talking about a 20 to 25-point swing. And that's the difference between giving up 130 points and losing, which the Jazz do on a regular basis, and giving up 105 points and winning, which presumably the Jazz will be much better at next year. So maybe there's a spot for Conchar. You got to listen to the whole conversation with Locke. I hesitate to recap it all now. I'd probably mangle some of his points. But one point he did make is I've talked about 3 priorities for what they need to add. Now, obviously, they might do some of this in the draft. We'll see where they're picking and who's available. They need a veteran with the ball in his hands in big games, whether that's late in the season to get in the playoffs or whether it's actually in the playoffs to win a series. If you're going to go into the playoffs and you're going to give the ball to guys who are playing in their first playoff game, you're going to lose. You just are. There's always a learning curve. Even if you turn out to be the Warriors and you win 4 titles and you're a dynasty, what did they do their first year in the playoffs? They were gone in a hurry. What did they do the next year? They won it all. Everybody needs a little bit of a learning curve. And so for Ace Bailey and for Conte George, don't ask that of them. And I think you need another guard in that rotation. You need 3 guys for 2 spots anyway, so bring somebody in. And then the second thing, you need a 3-point shooter. You don't have anybody on the team who can shoot 40%. There's 40 guys in the league. You ought to have one. If you're going to be really good, you probably have more than one. But they need to go find one. And then Locke added, well, they need a defensive stopper. And when I started thinking about it, like, okay, that was Kirilenko, right? They could put him on small guards. They could put him in the paint at the front of the rim to protect the rim. They could do whatever with him. And then in the next iteration, the next rebuild, they found Royce O'Neal, who hit a game-winning shot last night, actually, a 3-ball, and the Suns beat the Lakers, and now they're only a game behind the Lakers in the race for 6th in the West. And Royce O'Neal could defend a lot of people, and if they wanted to switch, he could switch, and he could match up with a lot of people. And let's face it, you're going to want to switch. You're going to have to match up with a lot of people. Who is that guy? Well, they haven't had one. Now, the first guy, when you say, that Jazz player can really defend, okay, Blake Hinson. Conchar is probably the guy who comes to mind, right? I mean, Kessler can defend, assuming they sign him, and both Locke and I think they will. We both have heard enough, and I don't have the latest. This could have changed over the last few weeks. I haven't heard anything recently. But what I heard earlier in the year is they're a long way apart, and the Jazz were bracing themselves that Kessler would go get an offer, and then they would have to match it. And what I heard was they were leaning heavily towards matching it. Now, that's one thing to say that October, November, December. Heck, it's even something to say it in February, March, or April. When you got to do it in June is when it really matters. And what's the number? And where else can they save money? You know, how much money are they going to have? Part of it is where they're going to draft. Even assuming New Orleans beats them tomorrow and the Jazz have the 5th worst record, they can move back to 8th. That's one salary slot. They can move up to 1st. That's another salary slot. So there's a lot of moving pieces to what they're going to do. But that's what David Locke and I talked about it. Go listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. It's up at YouTube, KSLSports.com, and Apple, Spotify, everywhere. Also had Riley Jensen on talking about football. There is a whole thing out here. We went from 2 transfer windows, one after the season, one after spring football. Now there's 1 transfer window. But there's a thing called blind transfers, which could still haunt your Cougars, your Utes, or your Aggies, no matter who you root for. And really it comes from Retzlaff. He got into trouble after, and all that news broke with the suit, and it got dismissed and all that, but then he was facing a suspension. So BYU, I mean, let's be honest, BYU wanted him gone. He wanted to be gone. He didn't want to do a 7-game suspension, blah, 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 yada, yada. So he just goes and enrolls somewhere and essentially walks on, and now he's at Tulane, and he's their starting quarterback. There's no transfer portal. He just did it. Well, agents are taking notes. Coaches are taking notes. And there's a thought that there could be 10 or 15 people do this. So,
and to your point, you mentioned the Jake Retzlaff one. Xavier Lucas was the one who kind of kicked all this off. He was the Wisconsin to Miami transfer, and he started in the national championship game this past year. And he simply unenrolled at Wisconsin and enrolled at Miami.
The path has happened, right? And for a school, it's like, well, that's actually when most students transfer is at the end of the year.
Well, any student at any point can.
Yeah, you can transfer at the semester, at the quarter if you're in that. You can always drop out of school.
Drop out of school, yeah.
Drop out of school and then go somewhere else. You can always do that. But that's chaos for managing a roster, to suddenly wake up and realize you have no offensive lineman and you have a game Saturday. You have no defensive lineman in a game Saturday. You have no quarterback in a game Saturday. So there need to be some guardrails. And as Riley said, and he's also available wherever you get your podcasts, as Riley said, man, I never realized how well managed pro sports was. It's chaotic, right? I mean, there's buyouts and there's trades and there's free agency and there's draft and guys are retiring and guys are getting hurt. I mean, there's always a certain amount of chaos. He said, but underneath all the chaos, there is some structure. And underneath all the chaos in college football, there's another lawyer with another lawsuit and another rule that we all thought we understood because we followed football our entire lives, and it turns out it's out the window. JC years don't count? Since when? Since that court ruling. Since that court ruling a year ago. That's when. Unless you're in another court with another judge, and maybe they do count. So it's chaos, and that just comes back to the winning and losing, which is the thing everyone turns up for. Can BYU in Utah and Utah State hold it together under whatever these new rules, whatever this blind transfer thing is going to evolve into? And, man, if that's frustrating, we had Bronco on the air, and he literally talked out the front. There's the hotline or whatever. This was it not alleged hotline? What do you call it? What was the word he used? Phantom hotline?
Phantom hotline,
Phantom
yes.
hotline.
I knew it started with a P. I was going to say purported, but it's not purported.
No.
The
There's this phantom hotline you can call if someone tampers.
We'll see if anybody actually answers
It's
it.
just like when you're in Broncos' role, and I think this is true for every coach in the Mountain West and every coach in the Pac-12, you are clearly in the middle class. You clearly have more money than the Big Sky, than all these championship subdivision teams, and in the case of D2, Ole Miss is in the playoffs and winning. Ole Miss. Have you followed college football for the last half century? Sadly, I'm old enough. Yeah, the answer to that question is yes. Ole Miss isn't any good. If Ole Miss has a big year, they still are like 8-3 and third or fourth in the conference. 9-3, third and fourth in the conference. I mean, come on. Ole Miss, they got a D2 quarterback. So the Mountain West and the Pac-12 schools going forward, they can go get guys. They can do this to other schools. Now, it's going to be done to them. The Power Four have more money than them. So Bronco may have somebody walk in his office and say this. Heck, Morgan may. It's hard to figure out where Utah fits in this new landscape, how much money they do or don't have, and it's all going to have to be sorted out because I really think this last transfer portal was pretty much a one-off, right? Kyle Whittingham goes to Michigan. Kyle Whittingham takes a lot of coaches. Kyle and all the assistant coaches have relationships, so they end up taking, 5 or 6 guys. BYU only lost a couple guys, only one to Michigan. They really weathered the storm pretty well, and I think they're going to be able to. And I think that whole quote, we're not going to be outbid, we're seeing that. First off, is an absolute, well, yeah, you are too. And so for all the people who's, not all about the money and we don't have the most money, there are going to be examples where they don't have the most money and they don't hold on to guys. It's going to happen. The truth is they will be outbid. The truth is they won't be outbid very often. And then the key is, and both Morgan and Kalani have talked about this, and I haven't heard Bronco talk about it, but I got to believe he's on the exact same page, is, if the money's similar, what kind of playing time are you getting? What kind of opportunity do you have to get better? Bronco has talked about this multiple times. Hey, you can go to a Power 4 school, but we've got the numbers here, and on average, you're going to play about half as many snaps. So if you want to go for the money, go for the money, but if you end up playing 20 snaps instead of 40 or 30 snaps instead of 60, you know why. I'm telling you why. Stay here, play here, and if you're good here, the NFL's going to find you here. Because the NFL's found a lot of players at Utah State, and they found a lot of players all across the league. And they'll find players wherever they are. They're like Ole Miss. They'll go D2 if they have to. So if you want to hear that conversation about football and where it's going, and Riley works with college programs. He also works with high school kids, and he's worked with pro athletes too, with the mental performance coach. So he's still wired in, and he knows what they're talking about. The thing is, in the pros, a contract is a contract. But in the colleges, a contract is a suggestion. They are written with so many escape hatches and so many trap doors. It is so rare we hear them enforced. In the NBA, there just aren't many outs. It's pretty much lockdown central. There are team and player options for 1 year at the end of a deal. We understand that. And in the NFL, only portions of the money are guaranteed. And anybody can be gone at any time, except for maybe like 10 starting quarterbacks that no one would ever dare do that with. But in colleges, anything goes. The wild, wild, wild west. Utah Mammoth play tonight. The playoff chase is on. This is it. They have 3 home games to get some momentum here, get rolling after a 3-week Olympic break. The problem is the first game was against the team with the most points in the NHL, the best record to date, the Colorado Avalanche. And the second game is with Minnesota, who's on 80 points in a 3-way tie for second. These are 2 very good opponents. They dropped the first game. They got to pick up some points at home here. They're going to go out on the road. They got this one Sunday afternoon. They host the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a 2 o'clock start. You can hear the game here on the Zone. They got to pick up points. And when we get back here Monday morning, they better have at least 3 points. Be better if they had 4. But they better at least have 3. 3 points out of 3 home games, it's a pretty low bar. So they got to do something tonight. And Minnesota's really good. So no gimmies, but Hey, this is as you make your way towards the top of the West, and right now they are in the first wild card spot, which is essentially the 7th seed. And the truth is, there really isn't that much separation between, if they get going, between the Mammoth and Vegas. Vegas is on 70 points. That's the 4th best mark in the West. They lead the Pacific Division. The Mammoth are only 6 points behind them. So if they get rolling here, we could look up when the regular season's done and find out the Mammoth, if they have the 4th or 5th best record in the Western Conference, not surprising. Now, the problem is the top 3 in the division are so good that really the best the Mammoth are going to do here is be the best wild card and play a division champ. Because they're 15 points away from 3rd place, and the way the playoffs are structured, the way the brackets are set up, they're not going to close that gap this year. But the Mammoth are making real progress. And Andre Torney basically channeled his inner Jerry Sloan, his inner Rick Majerus, his inner Urban Meyer, and his post-game quotes was just like, get in their face. Roger Reed, get in their face. And not just when you have the puck. Yeah, be the aggressor when you have the puck. But when you don't have the puck, get in their face. I don't think Pablo Mastroeni knows anything about hockey because he coaches soccer. But he'd be like, yeah, get up into them. Compete. So we'll see how they play and see how aggressive they are tonight. Watch how they check. Watch when they lose the puck. How aggressive are they about going and getting back and knocking somebody off the puck if they're just about to get possession. Let's see what this looks like tonight. Dig it out in the corners, Yak. Let's go. Give me some hockey verbiage. Give me some hockey. Hey, Monday, PK's going to be back. He's going to be making fun of me for this. So you better enjoy it now because we know what's coming.
Basket.
The biscuit in the basket. But that's not physical. That's more skill. We're talking about energy. We're talking about their inner Jersey attitude. We better get our Jersey attitude back because he's going to be here Monday with his Jersey attitude.
He'll also be
game has to match game.
He'll also be having ridden the entire Florida Keys.
Well, now I wasn't going to give that up. Look at you pull the curtain back right there.
He's already mentioned it. He's going to.
Apparently, there's a story about me that happened in the first hour or two, and no, I wasn't there. So I'm waiting to hear the story. I don't know what happened. But he said, well, it didn't take long for you to come up. So I don't know. I just got a text from him on that. I'm like, well. And I was going to ask him what it was because I want to know. And I thought, nope, save it for the show. We got 5 shows that week. We got 20 hours. We got 60 segments. Yeah, we've broken it down. Absolutely. We got 60 segments. That's one of them. What the heck is that story? We'll be here Monday and find out. I seriously have no idea. I thought about texting back to ask him and thought, nope. If I don't text him back, now we only need 59 segments. There we go. 1 down, 59 to go. That's how we attack it every week. 1 down, 11 to go in this show. Here we go. What else do we need to talk about? Shout out to Con Knipple. Why does this impact the Jazz? Stay with me. He breaks the NBA rookie three-point record, his 207th made three-pointer of the year. He went on to make 208 and 209 in that game. He'll probably finish somewhere around 270-ish, which will put him in one of the top 25 three-point shooting seasons in NBA history. And yeah, Steph Curry has 5 of the top 6, including the record. Can the Jazz draft somebody who can come in and make a difference between winning and losing? Charlotte, it took them a little while this year, but they got it rolling. They're almost back to 500. They have put themselves, and this is shocking because they are the team in the NBA that has gone the longest without being in the playoffs. They have put themselves in the 10th spot in the East. And they are only a half game out of 9 and only 2 out of 8. Hey, these guys could be in the playoffs. They could be turning it around. The Phoenix Suns have turned it around after a terrible year. Some people thought they'd be tanking. You could put me on the list of people who thought they'd be tanking. Who can the Jazz get in the draft that can come in and impact next year? All things to ponder. All right, it is an RSL Ticket Friday. Should have given these away while we had Jason Kreis on the air. Listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. But didn't have my act together, messed that up. It's too interesting what Jason had to say. Caller 12. You want to do it now or after the break? Right now. Yak's tired of waiting. Right now. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE wins a 4-pack of tickets to watch Real Salt Lake, Seattle Sounders, home opener, America First Field, tomorrow night, 5:30. I like the way early in the year they move it up. It's not warm enough yet to be kicking off at 7 or 7:30. A little earlier start, please. 5:30, first kick. If you want to go to the game, caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. Your feedback next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's time for your feedback. Got RSL fans curious about Jason Kreis' interview. Is there any way to listen to it after the fact? Okay, first off, every Friday, we're going to have someone on from RSL. Usually it's Pablo. He's been under the weather this week. I think he'll rally and be good for the game, but I think they were trying not to overload him today, so they put Jason Kreis on. And Jason ran down stuff about players with visa issues, players with injuries, laid out all the knee injuries, and a whole health update. So wherever you get your podcast, you can go to YouTube, you can go to KSLSports.com, Apple, Spotify. It's available. You can go listen to it. Our whole show is. And that is true for all of our interviews and the entire show. I mean, you can listen to the whole show this afternoon. If you just want to lock it down and listen to 1 hour after another, it's all out there. A lot of people discussing the Jazz. What must happen? Danny Ainge says the Jazz may have some tough decisions this summer. Obviously, they're expecting to add a high draft pick, and they've got some other spots, whether somebody's a really defensive stopper, a three-point shooter, a guard to run the offense who has playoff experience, a veteran who has been in the biggest games. So somebody's got to go. Who is it? Those will be hard decisions. You're making a trade, they're going to want somebody back, somebody you might not want to give up. Seba says Cody must stay. One player out of Flip, Bryce, and Zay can stay. Seba, I actually think there's a decent chance you'll get what you want. I could see Cody back next year, and I could see 2 of the 3 gone and 1 of the 3 here out of Filipowski and Bryce Sensabaugh and Isaiah Collier. In my mind, the one I'd like to see stay is Collier. I am just super intrigued by his ability to get to the basket. And trying to find defenders to stay in front of that guy, I mean, I don't want to say he can take anybody in the league off the dribble, but he can take most of the league off the dribble. And he's got flaws in his game. He is a young guy. He's still developing. There's stuff he can't do. There's stuff he needs to learn. There's big games he needs to play in so that he really realizes, whoa, that's where the bar is set. That's what I have to clear. But, man, people cannot stay in front of him. It is amazing. He comes into the game, like, you don't run pick and rolls. You don't do anything. You surround him with three-point shooters. You spread the floor, and you let him go to the rack. And he's a willing passer, and he minimizes his turnovers. Now, I know, you're in a playoff series, and they got 2 weeks to really lock in on you. They're going to go at him at the other end of the court. They're going to get him in foul trouble. They're going to switch him on to guys he's got no chance. There's all kinds of stuff that could go wrong at the end of the court. But he's got a superpower, and it's obvious, and it's one you want to have. We don't really need an offense in this moment because we got that guy on the court, and he's just going to go right to the rim. And if they all collapse, then we have shooters. Well, okay, they don't have good enough shooters. They got to work on that. Jeff says, I'm good keeping Cody and Collier. I'm good if Flip and Bryce have to be moved. Seems that's where a lot of people send. See, the thing with Filipowski is he can play in the NBA. I don't doubt that. But can he play a lot of minutes for a team that wants to win playoff series or multiple playoff series? I think the answer to that is no, at least right now. It might be no forever. But the problem is in his right now is that Markkanen and Jackson are on the roster and play the position he plays. So you can see the squeeze coming right there. All right, hit us up on Twitter, David DJ James, Facebook, DJ and PK. Show never stops. There'll be questions up this weekend as the games unfold. Jake and Ben are coming up next right here on The Zone.